Let's talk in another way that we have two types of errors. We can classify error random error or systematic one. Is this systematic error or random one? We targeted the center of the target, but the bullets reached to this part. So this is called systematic error. Systematic means that the results are different from the reality, and by repeating the experiment, the same difference with the reality will occur. Each time, the results differed from reality, and the direction of difference is the same. All times, the bullets will reach to the lower left part of the target. So the red one shows a systematic error. But we know that blue ones show the random error. Random error means that the results will be different by repeating the experiment, and the direction of difference is not, the same. Sometimes it's in the left side, sometimes it's in the upper right side, and sometimes maybe in the lower right part. In some cases, the bullet may be near to the center, but it is just random observation. So we have two types of error. Random errors are errors that the direction is not, is not constant. Direction of error, the direction of the difference between our observation and the reality change if we repeat the experiment. But in systematic error, we have the same direction. خواستگاری به عربی چی میشه؟ خواستگاری. خواستگاری در وقتی ازدواج خطوبه. خطوب. The خطوب or proposal in English. Or خطوب. When you go for propose marriage to a girl and the lady asks you about your income, you may tell the truth to the lady, you may tell the truth or the true value of your income to the lady, you may overestimate it or you may underestimate it. Which one is more probable? Overestimating. Depends on the situation. If you are going to pay tax to the government, you may underestimate your income, because if you overestimate your income, you may pay more tax to the government. If you want to propose marriage to a lady, to a girl, you may overestimate your income. I know that you will not tell lie to your spouse, but if you want to lie, you tend to overestimate your income to the lady, and you may tend to underestimate your income to the tax government body. Okay, so answering this question usually produces a systematic error. Systematic means that in each proposal, the answer may, overestimate the true. Overestimate means that what I will say to you is much than my real income. Underestimation means that I declare my income much lower than the reality. So this is a systematic error. It means that if I repeat my question, I will receive the same direction or the same amount of difference. In court, in a tax office, lower than the reality. In the proposing the khutbah, upper than the reality. So it is called a systematic error. But systematic error will be classified, or another definition for systematic error is bias. So bias means observations that are systematically different from reality. Observations that differ from reality, and the direction of difference is the same in repeating the study. Bias can be classified to selection bias and information bias. We will start from information bias because I've just presented you an example. When I want to get information from students, they may overestimate or underestimate their income based on the situation, based on the context. In the tax office, they underestimate. In the marriage proposal, they overestimate. So this occurs when the way we gather information results in the information that is false, information that is not true, but the direction of the error remains the same. By repeating the experiment, by repeating the study, we will reach the same amount of difference from reality. What about selection bias? Can one of the students explain me the meaning of selection bias or present an example for selection bias? Sorry? No, it is not related to information. It's not related to getting information. It's related to something else. Yes, you please.
I want to look at cigarette is not harmful for the population. So I'm going to select those who smoke who don't get any disease.
Okay, thank you. It's a good answer. Selection bias occurs when the people who are selected to take part in this study are different from people who are in the population. You know that we have a population. We cannot measure all population, okay? Cannot measure all people of the population. So we will draw a sample. When the sample is taken in such a way that the sample differs systematically with the population. For example, I want to ask some questions about smoking. I need a sample. If I select my sample based on candidatory, it means that if I ask who is candidate to answering this question, some people may candidate themselves to come here, some people may do not want to come here. If smoking is not, good in this class, if smoking is a bad habit, if we believe that it is not a good habit, so people who are candidate to come here are more likely to be non-smokers. Smokers do not want to come here and say, yes, I am smoking. So I selected a sample of population, a sample of students that tends to be less smoker than the total population. Let's give an example. We know that 10%, maybe 20% of the population are smokers and 80% are non-smokers. In the total population, If I ask this question from all students, I will reach this result. But I do not have enough money, I do not have enough time, so I prefer to take a sample. But I do not use a random sampling method. If you remember, in random sampling method, each person has an equal chance to be included in the sample. So in random sampling, I have to write your name on a piece of paper, each of you, then mix the pieces of paper, then draw, for example, 10 of these papers, 10 of these pieces of paper, then ask the people who their name have been selected. This is called the random sample. In random sample, all people have the similar chance, have the same chance to be selected in the population. But if I use a non-random sampling and ask who is candidate, who wants to come here and answer my question, the people who come from non-smokers has a higher chance to come here than people from smokers. So I may reach to 5% prevalence of smoking, although in the real population, 20% of the population do smoke, but in the sample, some smokers may do not want to come here. This is called selection bias. Selection bias means that the selection of people for taking part in the study is different. The selected people in the study are different from the total population. Or the way that I select people for taking part in this study is not a random fashion. It's based on a judgmental sampling. Judgmental means that some people may judge whether it is suitable to take part in this study or not. Let me give you another sample of random sampling. Assume that this is a sample of water. This is a tank of water. I want to measure concentration of something in the water. If I sample from bottom of the container, the concentration may be higher because some, sediments tend to deposit in the bottom of the tank. So if I sample from bottom of the tank, the concentration may be higher than average. If I just sample from the surface of the water, it may be lower than the average of the tank. So for random sampling, I should take some samples from bottom, some sample from middle, and some sample from surface. Then this produces me a representative sample. Representative sample is equal to process of random sampling. By random sampling process, we will reach to a representative sample. Representative sample means that I draw my sample in such a way that I expect that the sample has the same characteristics of the population. If the sample differs from the population, or in non-representative sampling, non-representative sample will cause selection bias. Bias means that the results differ from reality, and selection bias means that this is due to a faulty process of sampling. By repeating my sampling from bottom of the container, the same results will be observed. Higher concentration than average. On the other hand, if I repeatedly take some samples from surface of the container, surface of the tank, the results will be repeatedly less than true average of the container. So in information bias, the information are drawn in such a way that they do not represent the true situation in the population. And in selection bias, the sample is drawn in such a way that the sample is not representative of the total population. So we are discussing confounding and bias. Both of them, confounding and bias, both are called systematic errors. Both are called systematic error. They are not random, because by repeating the study, we will repeat the same, direction. We will repeat the same error in our results. Bias is classified into two categories: selection bias and information bias. And about confounding, we will talk about it. So, for the definition of bias, bias has been defined as any systematic error. Systematic means that the error is occurring in such a way that there is a system. System means that it is not random. It will happen in a similar fashion. Any systematic error in the design, when we select samples in a bad way, the design is not good. So sampling is a process. Sampling is a fault in the designing of the study. The conduct, when information is drawn in a bad way, it is called error in conduct, or sometimes in analysis. In analysis, we will discuss that confounding may cause some problem. Results in a mistaken, that study results may be mistakenly estimate of an exposure effect or any other thing. If my study is a descriptive one, what is the question in descriptive studies? Please give me some examples of questions from a descriptive study. In descriptive study, we wanted to know the incidence, prevalence, some measures of disease. For example, what is the prevalence of disease in this population? What is the prevalence of smoking in this population? What is the mean concentration of some, for example, heavy metal in a container, in the water tank? What is the mean blood pressure of this group of students? What is the risk of getting cancer in 10 years follow-up? These are, some examples of descriptive studies. What is the question of an analytical study? Is this related to that or not? Yes, what is the cause? But the question is really in this format. Is smoking a cause of cancer? And the answer should be yes or no. I will repeat that epidemiology has two components, the descriptive one and analytical one. In descriptive one, we will provide some figures. Some figures for the prevalence, for the incidence, for the mean concentration, for anything. And the number is the result of descriptive study. And yes or no is the result, or is the answer to an analytical study. Can we regard blood pressure of men and women the same? Yes, no. Are smokers in higher chance of getting cancer? The answer is yes, no. Is heavy metal a risk factor for kidney disease? The answer should be yes or no. So, if we are conducting a descriptive study, the number may differ from the reality. If we are conducting an analytical study, the result that there is any association between exposure and disease, or there is not any association between exposure and disease, may be false. There are some complicated examples of selection bias and information bias in these slides, but I will provide you some simpler examples because I think they can be much simpler cases. The book provided some complicated examples. Let's try to simpler questions. Suppose that I'm asking this question from a group of sample from a population. Have you ever had any physical violence in your family? Is it acceptable or unacceptable behavior? Physical violence is an unacceptable behavior. So the result will be underestimation, because people do not want to show that they have antisocial behavior. Physical violence is a sign of antisocial, personality. So by asking this question, the chance of information bias is high, because we know that giving a positive answer to this question may show that I have an antisocial personality. Antisocial personality means that I have a personality that is not accepted by the society. This behavior or this personality is not a good personality. So asking this question may give rise to a wrong answer. How can I reduce the chance of information bias for this study? I want to know the prevalence, the lifeline prevalence of physical violence in the family. And I know that by direct asking this question, the result may underestimate the situation. How, for example? You can. But beware that if you are interested to know the prevalence of smoking, if you ask some question about the consequence of smoking, they are not the same. You can ask some more important or more dangerous questions. You can ask some more sensitive questions and include your question in a context of more sensitive question. For example, you can ask some question about, have you ever had killed any people in the population? Have you ever had killed anybody? This is not my question. My question is about just physical violence, but I will ask some more sensitive question. Had you ever have any history of stealing something from, for example, a store? And within this question, I may ask my question of interest. So the respondent tries to give no answer to these questions, but when he or she reaches to this milder question, he or she may, decide to give the right answer to this question. Another way is to asking this question not in a verbal format. I may distribute some papers and ask him, please do not write your name. Do not write anything that I can, discover your identification, and then answer my question and put the results in the box. There's a closed box. There is a same color, pen that I have distributed for all of you. You have the same color pens, and there is a question, and I have provided 2 boxes and ask you to please check mark. Because if you write the answer, I may know your handwriting, and I may guess that who gives the right answer. So I will provide some pieces of paper. I will write the question, and after distributing to you, I ask you please check mark the answer and return the questions and put it in the closed box. I cannot exclude information bias. I cannot exclude it. I just wanted to reduce the amount of bias. Errors cannot be excluded totally. My art is to reduce the amount of bias. In this case, I can, write a question in a social environment, in a social media, and ask people, please give your answers anonymously. Anonymous means that in such a way that I cannot discover your name, your phone number, your social security number, anything that I can, discover who gives this answer. So for information bias, when I'm asking a sensitive question is a question that people do not want to give me the right answer, such as any history of violence, any history of physical violence, or verbal violence, maybe verbal violence. When we talk in such a way that is offensive to the second party, it is called a verbal violence. When I talk to you in such a way that is offensive to you, I may hurt you by talking in a bad way. It is called verbal violence. So if I am interested in the verbal violence, I may first ask about physical violence, because you know that physical violence is worse than verbal violence. Then asking my question about verbal violence. اگه فکر میکنید سوالی هست، ما وقتی سوالات حساس داریم یکی میتونیم دی آیدنتیفایزش بکنیم، کتبیش بکنیم، اسم رسمی، و میتونیم سوال حساسمون رو در مقوله ای از سوالات خیلی حساس تر که هدفمون نیست بگنجونیم. اونا
ركزوا بنات التليفونات. هنا صار الفايروس اللي شرع عليه الاستاذ اللي هي التحيز. فايروس متحيز اصلا. هنا مثلا يعني حفظ والله مثال الاستاذ على التصرف العنيف. مثلا هسه واقف هذا الشيء. ارد احكي اقول له واقف تبغي لو لا اكيد راح يقول لي لا. بس شنو اذا هاي هنا راح يصير عندنا غلط، بس لازم اغير صيغه السؤال. شو اقول لك؟ اقول له مثلا انت ايش قد تصرف باليوم؟ اذا قال لي مثلا 500 ربع اكيد بخيل. هنا فاحنا شو نسوي؟ كما ذلك كويشن اوف انترست، نغير طريقه السؤال بحيث المقابل ما ينجرح ويجاوب نفسه. مثلا اذا اريد اقول لكم هسه ايش قد هنا انا شفت مدخل؟ ما حد يدخل. قالوا غلط. بس شنو اعطيكم اوراق واقول مثلا اللي يدخل خليه يدخل صح، او اللي ما يدخل معي ولا حد يكتب اسمه. اقدر اعطيك كيف يدخل. ليش؟ لان انت ما شفت عنه. تمام؟ هل عندك سؤال؟ لا والله. ايه السؤال ما في. او يا اما انه طريقه المقابل ما لا ايه انه مثلا اي صح هاي طبعا الانسان ما انه يصير السؤال اقوى يعني انا بيحاول انه بس احنا عندنا لو نحاول انه لو نغير طريقه السؤال او انه نغير طريقه ولا بحث بحيث انه نحاول واحد مننا نسوي فوز انا نسوي فيه احد السؤال
Thank you, sir. In another example, I wanted to know the attitude of people from services that are provided by Hospital X. The question is that, do you like the services that is provided or are provided by this hospital or not? Okay, and I will draw a sample from people who refer to this hospital. The question is that, is people who refer to this hospital a good sample of people of the city? I wanted to know, I wanted to know the answer of people from the city, that there are several hospitals, and I'm interested in Hospital X. I will draw a sample of people who coming to Hospital X. Is a good sample or not?
No, because people who probably come to the center who had a bad experience with the hospital. And people who had a good experience will not bother.
Thank you very much. If some people have a bad experience of referring to this hospital, will not refer again, will not come again to this hospital. So people who are coming to this hospital are not a good sample of the total who live in this population. If I'm interested to know the opinion, the belief of people in the total population, I should draw a sample from the city, not from the people who are coming to this hospital. People who come to this hospital are, are in favor of the hospital. They believe that the services is at least as good as they can come to here. If I'm totally, if I totally disagree with the services, I will not, come to this hospital. So this is an example of selection bias. I have to write name of the all inhabitants of the population of the city, then draw a sample of the population, and then ask some question about them. If I ask question from people who come to this hospital, it means that this group of people believe that service of the hospital is acceptable. If they believe that it is unacceptable, they will not come here. Is it clear? Can I ask you to explain, because I want to use the same example for information bias later.
مثال هذا مال المستشفى تقريبا مفهوم انه احنا مثلا نريد نشوف الناس اللي يروحون لهاي المستشفى ونقارنهم بالمدينه مثل ما قال زميلكم قال احنا شلون نعرف الناس اللي عندهم باد اكسبيرينس راحوا شغلهم مو زينه اكيد ما راح يروحون مره ثانيه فهاي هنا ممكن شويه يتغير يعني فاكتور ممكن يغير في الدراسه مالتنا الاستاذ يريد يكون فهمتوا هذا المثال ما حد عنده مشكله فيه لا راح يسال سؤال عنه انا يقول لك مثال نريد نشوف تصرف مال الناس معينين راحوا ورجعوا للمستشفى نقارن مثلا بهاي التصرف فهنا يعني احنا شلون راح اليهو هذا اللي يروح ويهو اللي يروح اللي مثلا اللي راحوا وشافوا ما شافوا وصل او مثلا ما ذكرنا او يمكن ما راح يروحون على عكس الناس اللي ما يعرفون راح يروحون فهاي الفكر ممكن ياثر شويه على الدراسه مالتهم. مفهومه؟
In the next example, I want to measure the opinion of patients of a hospital. So the source population are not the population of the city, but are the patients who are admitted to the hospital. And then I will take a sample from patients of the hospital. It's now correct because the total population or the source population are patients of the hospital, and the sample will also taken randomly. I shouldn't use a random sampling fashion. I will take a random sample from the patient who are admitted at the hospital. My question is that, do you believe that patients will give the right answer to the questions or not? My question is that, okay, I'm your physician, and I want to know whether you are satisfied by the service that I give to you or not. Yes? I'm not provider. I'm the provider. I'm the physician, and I'm asking about the service that I provided to you. You cannot say that I'm not satisfied by your service, because if you say that, I may, it is the probability that I will not accept you in future, occurrences. So you provide to overestimate your satisfaction. Although you are not satisfied by my service, but if you give me the right answer, it may endanger your services that in future you may receive from my part. Okay, so although the sampling is a good sampling method, but the information will not provide true satisfaction of the patients. Can I have you to explain it again? این بار ببینید من نمونم از خود بیمارستان میخوام بگیرم و میخوام نظر مریضا رو بپرسم. من به عنوان پزشک وقتی کارم تمام شد از مریض میپرسم آیا راضی بودی یا نبودی؟ طبیعتاً لاچار بگه بله راضی بودم. حالا سوال من اینه که چه جوری میتونم این سوال رو از مریض بپرسم که مریض رضایت واقعیشو به من بگه، اوور استیمیت نکنه.
جواب اینا المثال هذا انه احنا للموضوع اللي في هاي المستشفى رحنا نعمل كله عندنا 50 مريض رحنا سالناهم يابا ورا ما هاي مثلا اليوم مباشره راح نطلع شنو رايك بالمستشفى بالخدمات اللي نقدمها؟ هنا ممكن المريض يعني شلون اقول لك احتمال كبير راح يقول لي اي الحمد لله عافيتكم طبيب يعني يقول بس شلون اسال بطريقه بحيث المريض راح يحكي لي شلون اقول لك اللي بداخله ويذكر العيوب اللي يعني مثلا هسه احنا لما نروح للمستشفى مثلا نقول له دكتور عاشت ايدكم اخاف مثلا بعدين نرجع له هاي ممكن ياذيني او فجاه بتفكير فاحنا شلون نسال بطريقه بحيث المريض يقول لي اللي بداخله والسجلات والايجابيات وعلى يعني المستشفى هاي مو بس يقول لي زين فهمت السؤال؟
How can decrease information bias? We know that information bias in this example is overestimation of satisfaction. How can decrease the information bias? How can I, decrease the amount of overestimation in this example? Yes? Thank you very much. We can change the question in such a way that the answer is not offensive for me. Instead of are you satisfied with my service or not? You can ask the question such as, is there anything that can improve the quality of services that provided by this hospital? Thank you. Changing the question and dividing it, for example, to more specific questions. For example, as your friends have mentioned, asking some questions about hygiene, some questions about cost of service, some questions about the time that you are waited until you receive the services, and something else. So I can change the nature of question in such a way that the patients trust me. Patients trust that I want to improve the quality of the service. What are another ways to reduce? Thank you. Depersonalize or de-identify the question as written answers on pieces of paper, but anonymously. Anonymously means that please do not write your name or any identity of yours. What else? I will mention the third one and you tell me the fourth one. Exit interview. What is the meaning of exit interview? It means that after receiving all services, when patient is leaving the hospital, then we will ask our questions. If, during their delivery services, I ask the question, he or she may think that giving the right answer may endanger the rest of the services. So exit interview means that when patient is leaving the hospital, it means that he or she received any services that he or she needed, then I can ask the question. And what about fourth one? I will write the first word. Third party, what does it mean? Yes, I am the physician, for example. He is the patient. I will ask the third party, a people who is not involved in the process of care delivery. Some people who is outside of the hospital. I will not, ask the person of the hospital to ask the questions. I may use somebody from the population. Somebody from the population, from the patients. I will ask the patient, please stay at the exit door of the hospital and ask these questions. So the patients will know that the answers are transferred to the physicians by the third party that is not responsible for providing the services. So you can find some more solutions for this, type of data gathering. By each of these strategies, I try to reduce the information bias. It means that I cannot exclude them totally. Always there is some amount of information bias. Even if a patient asks another patient about the services, the first patient may give not the true answer. Even there is a small chance this patient give the situation to the doctor and doctor may do not accept me in future, referrals. So The selection bias and information bias are two main important sources that produce wrong answers, and we cannot exclude them completely. We should use some measures to reduce them, to control them. Reducing bias or controlling bias is such as controlling diabetes. Can you remove diabetes totally? No. You can control diabetes. Control means that you may prescribe some medications, you may, give some advice about the diet, some advice about physical activity, some advice from losing weight, and all these advices try to reduce the severity of diabetes, to reduce the consequences of diabetes, but they will not remove diabetes totally. Hypertension is another example. By removing the amount of salt, by removing the weight, by increasing physical activity, we will try to reduce the outcome, the final outcome of hypertension. We cannot remove hypertension. Hypertension is a chronic disease. It is life-lasting disease. Okay. So I just want to mention that there are two main important drawbacks in epidemiology, in analytical and descriptive studies. In descriptive studies, we have problem of selection bias and information bias. In descriptive studies, we just have the problem of bias. We don't have confounding in descriptive studies. Please pay enough attention to this sentence. In descriptive studies, we do not have confounding. But why? Why we do not have confounding in descriptive studies? First, you should provide me the definition of confounding. What is a confounder? Based on something that we have discussed in the previous session. Yes?
Confounding is something, if there is an association between two.
Okay.
Then we have one code that goes both of them.
Thank you very much. I'm interested in the relation between X and Y, and there is a Z, that Z can produce Y, and Z may be also related to X. This is a relation. And in descriptive studies, we are not evaluating relations. Relations are always being evaluated in analytical studies. In analytical studies, we look for relations. So the confounding is just a problem of analytical studies, because confounding is the effect of a third factor that interferes between relation between first and second factor. When we are studying the relation between X and Y, Z may interfere with this relation, and the relation is always being evaluated in analytical studies. So in analytical studies, we have three problems in analytical. What are these three problems? First, confounding. Second one, selection bias. And third one, information bias. What about descriptive studies? We have just two problems: selection bias and information bias, because we do not evaluate any relation between variables in descriptive studies. Is it clear for all? Do you need any more explanations in your own language?
الرابع الدكتور حديث اشرح لي الراجع of information
bias, or let's say selective bias, is high in both underestimating and overestimating?
In some cases, overestimation is more dangerous for us. In some cases, the underestimation may be more dangerous. So it depends on the situation. In some cases, for example, I want to measure the amount of some pollutant in the water. Okay? If I overestimate the amount of the pollutant in the water, it protects the population. Because, for example, the real situation is 10 microgram per cubic meter, for example, but I reached to 20 microgram per cubic meter. I overestimated the true, concentration. I overestimated the true amount of pollutant in the water. By overestimating, the protection will be higher than the real situation. If I underestimate the value, I will endanger the health because there is a high amount of pollutant in the water, but I underestimated it. In this case, underestimation is much dangerous, much more dangerous than overestimation. In some other cases, the overestimation may have a bad consequence. Always in epidemiology, you can start your answer with the sentence, it depends to something, to situation. Almost in all questions, if there is a written exam and I have asked you about something, you can start your answer, but it depends to some things. If you write that some things correctly, you will get the total mark. If even you write something that is not correct, you may give some fraction of the score because you understand that nothing in epidemiology is fixed. Everything is dependent to the situation, to the context. Thank you. Any other questions? So we have the confounding and bias as the two important issues in deriving causal inferences. Causal inferences means that we are discussing analytical studies. But in pure descriptive studies, we do not have the confounding effect because confounding is for relation between A and B. In descriptive studies, we may have some kinds of bias, information bias or selection bias. As I've mentioned, there are some more complicated examples of bias, but I just provided you simpler scenarios. And this simpler scenario is enough for you. It is sufficient cause of understanding the bias. But in this slide, we will provide, I just provided you a more comprehensive definition of confounding. In a study of whether factor A is a cause of disease B, we say that the third factor, for example, X, is a confounding if two scenarios or two facts are existed. First, factor X should be a known risk factor. Sorry. Protective. Factor X should be a known risk factor or protective factor. It means that there should be a known relation, a known causal relation between the third factor and the outcome. And second, constituent is that factor X should be associated with factor A, but not as a result of factor A. Let's show it in the next slide. For smoking to be a confounder between drinking coffee and increased risk of pancreatic cancer, smoking should be a cause of pancreatic cancer, and at the same time, smoking should be related with drinking coffee. Related with drinking coffee means that coffee drinkers should smoke more or less than non-coffee drinkers. Relation means that people who use coffee should use or should smoke cigarettes more than the general population or less than general population. This is called, the relation. And it says that it should not be a consequence of the exposure. Let's explain it in this situation. For example, I want to evaluate relation between smoking and lung cancer. Is age a confounding variable or not? Please discuss. Can be regarded age as a confounding variable for relation between smoking and lung cancer or not? And why? Why? Because we know that by increasing age, the risk of cancer will increase, and we know that younger people and older people may differ in terms of smoking. If older people smoke more than younger people, if olds smoke more than youngs, and if RR for smokers in this study equals to 4, how can we interpret this result? The relative risk for smoking is 4, and we know that old people smoke more than young people. How can we interpret the RR of 4? Is it purely related to smoking or not? What is the true relative risk for smoking? Is it greater than 4 or less than 4? The true effect. Sorry? Greater or less? Why? Please explain your reason. Why? Yes, of course. We compared a group of smokers with a group of non-smokers and found that the relative risk for smokers equals 4. It means that the smoker group have a 4 times higher risk of getting disease, okay? And at the same time, we know that old people smoke more than young people. It means that the group of smokers are older than group of non-smokers, okay? The smokers are older than non-smokers. And we know that old people have a higher chance of getting cancer. I have 2 questions. First question is that, is the true effect of smoking totally 4 or not? And my second question is that if there is no, what is the true effect of smoking? Is it greater than 4 or less than 4?
Older people, they don't just smoke, they're older. Because when you get older, the risk of getting cancer increases. So it's not just smoking that leads to cancer.
Do you agree with him? May I ask you to explain your reason in Arabic for your friends? Please stand and explain in a loud voice for your friends.